Field in thirds, I would say, rather than half here, and US Postal have got some of the boys up here, and at least 3 riders in this breakaway. This is where they picked up the 2 boys in red who decided to go for it, caused that consternation, and they've been reached by a large group, but certainly not the whole race here. And that's Murray on the right. Sorry about the little picture breakup. It's usually when the cameras go under railway bridges and the helicopters can't reach the pictures, but there we are. These are live action pictures as they happen here. And we're on the Kelly Drive again now, heading down towards Lemon Hill. A lot of the riders from the Danish Accept card team are here. They're the half colours blue and white, about 4 to 5 men back. And the gap now is only 1:34 to the 4 leaders. So that reaction coming from Seiko, now joining in some more riders from the race here, has halved that gap. It's down to 1:34. It shouldn't be long before they start pulling those leaders in.
That's where we thought he might end up. That's where he is right now. George Hincapie, #1, leading the U.S. Postal Service as they're finishing up lap number 8. And one of the challenges we had this all week is that Irving Fryers eventually today, he promised us today, he's going to try to climb up the Manayunk wall. Irv, is that even possible? Irv, what are you talking about?
The wall, the wall, the wall. You know, that's all I hear about is the wall. I'm going to find out just how hard it is to climb that thing.
Frost said it best. Robert Frost said it best. Something there is that doesn't love a wall. Add Irving Fryer to that list, maybe. We'll see what he can do. Football player? Let's see him ride a bicycle. We'll be back with more USPro Cycling Championships. Oh my, here we go. In just a few moments. Lap number 8, just about ready to start as they're heading down towards the end of number 7. We saw what the Italians can do. We saw what George can do. Can he become a defending champion who wins it again? We saw it in the women's race, and so far in the, how many years has this race been going on? 15 years, I guess.
It's the 15th year.
Yeah.
15 years. So 3 guys have won this race before that are in the race today, but no one has ever won it a second time. Could it be King George doing it today?
Well, he's never had a finer season, Gary, and if he's going to do it, it's going to be this year because he's ridden so well. But, you know, he's got a lot of work to do yet.
Let's go to the race summary, see what's happening up to the moment. USPro Cycling Championships.
This racing summary is brought to you by Michelob Light.
And right now there's a 4-man break as Sheehan, Sayers, Jansen, and Baldwin. The maximum gap at that point was 3 minutes, but as we see right there, 2 guys of the Chase group and the Manayunk wall were caught by the group, and of course leading that group is our man, King George Hincapie, U.S. Postal Service, and they made a major move. The major part of this race, if it is to be written about who exactly is going to win, could be what we just saw on the Manayunk wall a few moments ago.
Certainly a key factor in the development, tactical development of this bike race. We've been following Salvatore Comesso all day. We knew that he was going to explode into action, and he certainly did. He lived up to our expectations, and now he's caused this big group to split off from the field, and will they be able to work together? We'll have to see farther down the road, Phil Liggett.
Yeah, I guess it was very impressive the way the Seiko boys decided this race has got to come alive, and they made that choice to go on the climb, and it just showed how strong they were as well because nobody could match them. We're looking here now at one of the Lyndon McCartney riders here trying to keep the pace up. He's got himself in the front group. This is Scott Gayton. He's not actually English, although he's listed as Great Britain. In fact, he comes from New Zealand, and he's one of the few riders that the team has taken on from foreign countries. They've got a couple on board as well from Australia. But this little group now, you see how they're working very fluidly together. We're looking at George Hincapie. He's checking out the riders who've made this split. We figure there's about 29 of them in this group, and we'll get a full count on that when they get back to us here at the start-finishing line. But George Hincapie doing just enough. He's assessing who the strong ones are, where they are, who is sitting at the back and not contributing to the pace, and that's most important. Are they tired or are they just shamming? And he'll have to work it out. Anyway, we're on to Lemon Hill now, and the gap is coming down.
Are they just shamming?
That sort of is pretending.
Pretending.
Good English.
Shamming. Very good English. The King's English, according to Phil Liggett. Let's go to some King's English in Manayunk. Here's Scott Palmer with some wild people. Let's go.
How could you resist, Phil? You said you wanted to come to Manayunk. You've got your invitation. It's the Love Wall in Manayunk. Gary, I want this job forever.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think I am going to Manayunk now.
Well, what do you say to that?
I think he's having a wonderful time and he's doing a great job, but boy, he's got a few extras on site down there. The race itself is coming round to complete lap number 8 now, and there are 4 riders in the lead.
Wow.
Yes, we've ascertained there are 25 in the main field, and they're about to be caught. They've realised it, so the chase down by the boys in red has had its play. because they know now, look in the distance, there's the first rider. It's a Mapei rider who's trying to get across. The field is coming together very, very quickly indeed. We are going to have a massive field, actually, because looking over my shoulder here now, there is an enormous number of riders catching them. And so there's been a general regrouping, I think, here, John.
They've all caught back up. The breakaway has been absorbed. Mori and Comesso had wanted to break this field up more than it has been broken up into smaller pieces. So their plan a little bit has failed. It's taken some of the sting out of the chasers, the legs of the chasers, but really it's too big of a group for the two Italians. They don't have a super sprinter like Hincapie or Rodriguez, at least on paper. So look for more attacks to happen, counter-attacks to happen, and we might be having the first one right here in our photo, in our pictures. It looks like a counter-attack from the field after having caught the break, Phil. We'll have to get the numbers.
Well, they've gone straight forward, 3, 6, 8 of them trying to go clear. That's what you do as you bring back the breakaways. You immediately launch another attack because the main field are usually tired from the chase down and tend to allow you to get away again. And that's always the time to go. And we've got this little group. I'm not in fact sure. These are the riders. These are the original 4 riders here. They've been joined by a couple of emissaries coming up from the main field, but as of yet, the main field has not made contact, so there's still a chance.
One of those riders was from Marty, from the Mapei team, a strong, aggressive rider who was so good in the Christiana Care Cup of Wilmington, Delaware last Sunday. A man who wants to perform well and who actually earned his spot on the Tour de France for the Mapei team because of his performances here at the First Union Cycling Series. So every motivation to be in front for Marty, and there he is right now pulling the breakaway.
Well, he's a good rider. He had a stage win in the Tour of Murcia this year, which is a race in Spain. That was back in March. He hasn't won since then, but he is a workhorse and he's a very, very strong rider. And there's some interesting riders trying to get themselves on the frame here now, because now we've done 180 miles. Every time somebody attacks, the old legs complain that little bit. We're going out on lap 9 of 10 of these big circuits, and then we go to the small circuits, which continue to climb Lemon Hill before the race will finish. So there's still a long way to go as the riders start to go clear now. The guy from US Postal there, who has made the split, as far as I can see, it looks like Marty Jemison has got himself across. But the race is going past us in 3s and 4s here. This is a scramble to get in on the selection, I think.
This is a point of the race that's very difficult to control because attacks go on the right, attacks go on the left, they come back, they reform, and it's very difficult to calculate which attack to go with. And it's often the sign of a tactically superior rider, someone who has the right nose, if you will, for the attack, that these good breakaways are formed. You have to know when and how to go. And this is the section of the race, the tactical point of the race, when it becomes crucial to find yourself in the right move of breakaway riders.
We are through 8 laps here of the USPro Cycling Championships. 2 more to go. It's getting interesting. We'll be back with more right after this. Receiver. What a fabulous man, Irving Fryer. Phil, can you do a little commentary? I realize this is not slow motion. This is regular motion.
Well, it's not in slow motion.
No, it's live.
Flat out. Oh, well, it's excellent then. Here comes Irving on the climb. He looks as though he's got a very cool climber's style. Although I think probably he will be better as a sprinter with all that strength he's got. But listen to the crowd. They're enjoying seeing him come up. I think I'd use a slightly higher gear here, but then he's getting up the hill very effectively, and he's actually going quite quickly here.
Fabulous. Irving, can you hear us?
Don't speak. It could be the last words you ever utter.
Save every breath of oxygen. Listen to the reception Irving Fryer gets.
Well, the crowd enjoying this one as he comes up the climb. As we go back to pictures now of the 6 leaders, it looks like we've got down there. There were 8, Gary, but it's down to 6. They're trying to organise some sort of chase here. The Accept card riders have got 2 men in this front group, and the rider there from Mapei who's trying to join them in some sort of action. I just caught a glimpse of him, but I've lost him for the moment. Looks as though he is going to try and get these field on the way. Very difficult to get an event, an action here from the breakaway. They're not consolidated, they're looking at each other, and there's the result. Look, it's swelling now to about 10 riders.
Not really organized, is it, John?
It's not really organized. They're all looking for the right combination. It's like setting down, dealing out a hand of cards. Do you have a full house? Do you have a bad hand? When you find the right combination of riders, it works. And that's what they're looking for. And that's what someone like our star there, Salvatore Comesso, back on the attack. You got to love this kid. No, he's not a calculator. He just goes with everything he has. And he's trying to force the right combination of riders. And he's doing it. You've got to break. He's away. It's the second break in a row he's been in, and he is a real key player in this bike race. Back to George Hincapie in the group, trying to control this breakaway up the road ahead.
Good for George. He's looking pretty cool. He's just doing all he has to do at the moment. Let the others do the racing. He's made the decisive split. And just sitting over to George's left as we look at the picture there, it looks like Adriano Baffi, who's a great sprinter in his day, one of the fastest finishers in the world. A little bit long in the tooth now. He's in his mid-30s, but in the old days he would have been a most feared man. George moving up the pack a little bit just to check out. He's definitely got a couple of teammates here who will be looking after him when they have to, but you see somebody's turned the gas up front, and George immediately in to follow them through. That's good riding there by George. At the moment he's sitting there on the back wheel of Boštjan Mervor. He's a Slovenian rider on the Slovenian Telecom team.
So George is positioning himself perfectly. Irving Fryer made the wall. We'll try to talk with Irv in a second if he gets enough oxygen back in that body. We'll be back with more USPro Cycling Championships. A lot more ahead right here on Channel 6. USPro Cycling about 20 minutes before 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The men are attacking the 9th lap of this race. A mini break is happening right now, and Phil, you're all over this one.
Well, it looks as though we've got two of the Postal boys here. We're looking at one now. Benoit Joachim just finished second in the British Tour of Britain. That was a 7-day race, and he's from Luxembourg, a newcomer on the US Postal team. We've also got Marty Jemison up here for the USP. Brian Walton, who's riding so well as he does every year, is again in a decisive move, and so too is Salvatore Commisso, the only member of the Seiko team to make the split. I think we've got 10 riders here, but really they're not very far ahead of the field, John.
That's what's happening at lap number 9, and of course we saw Irving Fryer earlier today, as Phil aptly described. He was doing rather well. Very impressive with what Irv has been able to do.
So am I.
But now that he retired from football, we know why he did, and thankfully he has retired from football because he's a pretty good bike rider, I guess. Here's Scott Palmer live with Mr. Irving Fryer. Is Irving vertical?
It's really hard to hear. I was hearing an Irving Fryer chant earlier, but the folks here are so excited. They thought it was George Hincapie who was barreling up here. I'll tell you what, they can take a cue, can't they? Irving, it was
his team, because his dad, who lives in Luxembourg, kept ringing the team and saying, you've got to take my son on your team. And in the end, they got so tired of his phone calls, they took him, and he's turned out to be a real discovery. He's a very, very good bike rider.
One of the attributes, fine attributes of the U.S. Postal Service is they find out all for the best riders from around the world, bring them in, teach them the American system, our American version of European professional bicycle racing, and that is one of the reasons that this team has become one of the top World Cup teams in existence today. One rider there, the accept card rider, very aggressive as they've been the entire week. Bramati there in full photo, if you will, full picture. The Italian, generally a worker, but maybe having a card to play for his own results this race today. He's certainly been powerful this ride.
Well, there's Bramati, and stage winner Tour Mercy, that was in March this year. And it looks like Bramati is trying to just liven things up. The rider in the red jersey there, who's trying to come up too, is Salvatore Commisso. He's been marking everything today, and obviously is feeling in very, very good condition. He'll enjoy this sort of weather. It's just like it would be around Naples at this time of the year. Perfect.
And as they go into the approach to the Manioc wall, Salvatore Commisso in front, not hiding.
Now, what will he do this time up the hill, John? We saw what happened last time.
I feel a little bit sorry for the guys who are with him in that breakaway, because they're about to go through a whole lot of pain.
Now, this is the chase group containing George Hincapie. It's getting bigger. We believe there's 18 riders in this group at the moment. A lot of US Postal boys, you see, in the US Postal team are chasing, despite the fact they've got 2 riders in the front group, because they're not the 2 riders they want in the front group, so they need to redress the situation. Back up to the front, and there's Joachim at the back, number 3 for US Postal. The one out of the saddle further up in the blue, and that is Jemison. And the 2 accept cards who've made this breakaway are Jakob Piel, who had a win here the other day as well. He won in Lancaster. And also we've got Sonne, or Sonne, I think you'll actually say his name. He's also in this breakaway, and that's a Morten Sonne, 2 Danish riders from accept cards. So they've made sure they've got in the move this time, having spent the early days of this race chasing.
Jakob Piel, a very interesting rider, was a track rider on the indoor racing circuit, had a broken bone last winter, couldn't race the indoor tracks, turned himself into a fine top road racer. Happy being on the hills and winning races on the road. In the front, Salvatore Commisso. forcing the pace for Seiko Cannondale. Marty right next to him. Crucial climb of the Manayunk Wall.
It is, and now let's see what's going to happen here, because Comesso is setting the pace on the front yet again. There's a few cars between this group now and the main field, or the chase field, which means the gap must be more than 30 seconds as they start the climb here, and that's Marty Jemison on the front at the moment for US Postal, hurting one or two of the younger riders in this race. So I'm not surprised at this point of the course. It's a tough little climb, this now, and look at this, riders starting to drop off all over the climb. This is the ninth time. Only one more climb up the hill.
Ninth time. And Phil, I do believe that I saw out of the corner of the screen in the shot from the field, George Hincapie on the attack. So in the front, Comesso, Peel on the attack. In the back, Hincapie of the Postal trying to break up what's left of the field. And that is Hincapie leading the field.
Right. You're absolutely right, and look at the gap now. Well, Hincapie has been on one of those seasons you just hope comes your way, and you don't know why it does, but it's come this way this year for George. He started off with a fine 9th place in Milan-San Remo, a World Cup counter in Italy. That race almost 300 kilometers, 180 miles long, and George got 9th. So he's had that form ever since. His great 4th place in Paris-Roubaix and his 4th place in Ghent-Wevelgem, 2 classics in Belgium and France, indicated he's coming here with his finest form ever. And now, can he get up to these leaders? And he looks, he's remonstrating a little bit to the riders, because he hates these gaps opening by other people leaving the door open. It takes so much effort to shut them down, but there's a break going here.
Part of the responsibility that George Hincapie is going to have to assume with his new title as one of the world's best bicycle racers. No presence from the rest of the field.
You were talking earlier about that, John, the fact that when George won last year, he seemed to take on the persona of a champion, that once he put on that jacket, he lived up to the billing. Some guys go back. George seemed to revel in it.
He loved the pressure. He went to the Tour de France, was 2 seconds out of the yellow jersey, in the top 5 all the time in the stages, just missing a stage win, and he continued that Biden performance this year in the early season classics, 4th at the Paris-Roubaix, which is one of the world's most famous, wonderful races, and he is one of the big players on the world scene today.
King George. We'll see if he's crowned again. We had a defending champion win it on the women's side with Petra Rosner, and George Hincapie, who won it last year, is trying to do the same thing on the men's side as they're on lap number 9, and here they come really fast.
Well, this is the long descent now from the Manayunk Wall, and Hincapie is getting himself into a...
How fast are these guys going right
here? They should be doing 50 mile an hour now, easily coming down here. As the riders now are trying to close this race down, but now it's the battle of the strong men of this year's USPro Championship, because there's only one more lap, which includes the Manayunk Wall. Then we move all of our concentration to 3 further laps, taking in Lemon Hill. This looks like the legs of David McKenzie flexing at the back here, the Australian sprinter, and he's going across to the leaders as well.
50 miles an hour plus, heading down the Manayunk Wall for the 9th time. USPro Cycling Championships. We'll be back with more with King George right after this. Back live, USPro Cycling Championship. This is lap 9 of lap number 10, and big things happening again, Phil, because they're about to get caught.
They're about to get caught. The man in yellow here, Linda McCartney's Australian sprinter, David McKenzie, who's riding good. George Hincapie is in this group as well, driving through at the front at the moment. There is the breakaway as we knew it, and Hincapie has now put himself back up amongst the leaders as well. They're coming together here, and I think, you know, we're seeing the beginnings of the end for the rest of the race.
This is the move that they've been trying to make happen. That's what Maury has been doing, attacking off the front, trying to break this field up. It's a big group that's all together. Expect more counterattacks as they try to whittle down the amount of riders who gathered here together in the front. But Phil, the big players are up in the front here, and it looks like the race very well could be decided from among these riders.
All right, coming up on 2 o'clock, let's go to the race summary.
This racing summary is brought to you by First Union.
10-man break, including the names on the screen right there. Maximum gap at one point was 35 seconds, but right now, as we said, a lot closer than that.
It certainly is. They're coming together now, but as soon as they come together, you see riders are sprinting off the front. They will not let this race rest at all now, and why should they? Because we're at the crucial stage at about 125 kilometers, maybe slightly more covered now, at 128. We're on Kelly Drive again. The Schuylkill River's off to the right there. We're heading down towards Lemon Hill. These are the pace setters, still trying to set the trend here. The man who's doing a lot of the work at the front there is Benoit Joachim for the US Postal, while meanwhile in a group that's about to make contact, upcoming here is number 1, the defending US champion George Hincapie, and Hincapie now getting a little bit of a restful ride, in fact on the team wheel of Benoit Joachim. So the rider up front was in fact Marty Jemison, the other member in this breakaway.
And in one of the matchups that we've been looking forward to all day, as the riders in the front here, the breakaway, sit up and wait for the chasers behind to catch them. Oh, attack on the right.
Yes, some do and some don't, John, because this rider here is anxious to keep this race going as long as possible off the front. He's making it so hard for the riders who keep on joining at the back, and this is good cycling because it means the boys behind are always on the defensive while these attacks keep coming up off the front. This looks like Brian Walton. Certainly got the style of Brian Walton. We'll catch up with him if we can. But the Canadian rider is always in the thick of it, and he's an aggressive rider who wins virtually all of his races by himself. It is Brian Walton too, so that's a very typical move by him.
Wonderful sort of rider that can win races on the road or on the banked velodromes, as you saw in the graphic. Silver medal in the Olympic points race on the bank tracks in Atlanta. But in back of Brian Walton,
oh dear,
the United States Postal Service has taken command of this event.
He sat up immediately, look, because he saw the reaction. They've all come up alongside him and he's gone back into the field. Common sense thing to do here. Now, George Hincapie quite prepared to work at the front now. This man is full of confidence, and when you've got confidence, then you get results. It's as simple as that.
Champion is on the attack, and as we were saying before, one of the great matchups that we've been looking forward to all day. George Hincapie, United States national champion, leader of the United States Postal Service team, versus the young Colombian-American Fred Rodriguez from the Mape team, who was in that breakaway as well.
We're right now live on the telephone. We have the coach of the Saturn team, Renee Wenzel. Renee, are you with us right now? Renee, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, this is Tom. I'll talk.
How is it going for your team? You saw the power of the U.S. Postal Service team with George. Those guys look rather strong, don't they?
Well, the Saturn team is well represented right now with Brian Walton in the front group and Levi Leifheimer with the Hincapie group. So right now we feel pretty good because out of the 9 in the front we have one, and out of the 7 chasing we have another. So things are pretty good right now.
So you say Levi Leifheimer in the second group, or in fact I think he must have joined with the leaders now, because pictures we're seeing here now, they all seem together at the front.
Actually, I think that's right. It should be 16 in the front. We should have 2 in there.
Right. So things are okay, Tom. It's been a very strange race today. The race patterns haven't been...
One lap to go, I take care.
Okay. So, Tom, we'll leave you because the line isn't working too well between you and me right now.
Thank you, Phil.
We'll come back when we can.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Tom Schuler, from the director of the Team Saturn team. We'll be back with more of the USPro Cycling Championships right after this. Back live, USPro Cycling Championships as they're ending up lap number 9 out of lap number 10. And the group that's in front now has now grown to 18.
18 riders, Gary, and in fact they've split the main field to pieces. It all started with that attack by the boys in red the previous lap at the Manayunk wall, because we've lost track of the main field. They're over a minute behind, which doesn't sound a long way, but in between is a group of 10, a group of 6. We're looking at the lead group here, which we've estimated at 18 riders now. It includes George Hincapie, the defending champion, but there are a lot of good riders also have made this split, John, and Hincapie's still going to have to produce some good moves to shake them off, I think.
He's going to have to produce the moves indeed, but he's using his teammate, Joachim from Luxembourg. The man has been placed himself on the front of this breakaway group and is basically burying himself with effort, just forcing this break, ensuring that the gap opens up on the field and that the race will indeed be decided among these riders. Look at this Postal Service rider from Luxembourg on the front, just doing everything he can to keep this race going fast. That's teamwork in action.
Absolutely right. Now we're seeing the tactics in reverse from US Postal. They've watched everybody, but now they've caused the split and they're riding at the front with all of what we call their domestics, the helpers. This is Harm Janssen at the back here, dangling a little bit after a great day of racing in the lead. He's having a tough job holding on now. There are in fact 20 riders in this lead group, and Benoit Joachim, the Luxembourger on US Postal, is the rider right on the front to try and open the gap and distance the riders who are desperately scrabbling now to rejoin the front end of the race. Once they come down, it won't be long now, a mile and a half or so into Ben Franklin Parkway, we are going to see 20 riders in the lead. The gap has gone up thanks to the efforts by Benoit Joachim to 24 seconds on a chasing group of 6 riders. The rest are falling away from the pace now.
This looks very well to be the crucial race, the crucial move in this bike race. You've got big stars in front, you've got teams, you've got decided aggressive tactics on the way. This could very well be the event.
So many teams jockeying for the perfect position. Right now, Karen Rogers in the perfect position. She's in.
But I think I'll wait. I'm afraid I'll spill.
All right, thank you, Karen. One more time, they'll be at Manayunk, and that is the end of the race. We're on lap number 9, just about wrapping up lap number 9. Trying to get a hold of Mike McCarthy, who's on that motorcycle at the end of the race. I don't know if Mike, can you hear me yet?
Yeah, I can hear you, Gary. I'm right here. Joachim's making an unbelievable effort up there. I think he senses that this is the move. When I looked back on Benjamin Franklin Parkway, the only group I saw that was anywhere in sight was a group of 5 riders. They were about a minute behind on the longest straightaway. I could see them. Right now, Joachim is the man doing a majority of the work. He almost came off on the small hill through Strawberry Meadows. He's regained, he's back at the front, but this is definitely the move. I think a man who looks extremely, extremely good to me in this group right now is Freddy Rodriguez. He came up, an effortless look on his face. Some of the other riders showing a lot of the strain. Freddy Rodriguez, a guy that we've spoken a little bit about, not a whole lot, just looks absolutely fresh right now. And I think, looking at what's going on up here right now, he is going to be George Hincapie's biggest threat.
Very impressed with Fred Rodriguez. How about George? Is George around there anywhere? Hincapie.
George came to the front, took a huge pull, actually sort of attacked the group when he came up here. And then as he slid back, he looked every guy in the face, I think trying to get a good feel for what was going on in the race here. Just a good, try to sense how everybody was feeling. There are definitely some fatigued guys out there. The heat's really starting to take its toll. I know I'm sweating up a storm back here, and I'm not even pedaling a bike. So this is really where the big action is going to take place. I don't think you're going to see guys coming from behind anymore unless these guys totally stop.
Watching the bike riders ride around Logan Circle for the 9th time. Phil Leggett heading towards the Parkway, and then one more time. Next time they do this, it'll be for real.
It certainly will. It'll be the end of the Manayunk Wall next time, but then the riders will go on to the bigger climbs, of course, as they come up. But the riders now, we've got, in fact, 17 riders now confirmed in this front group. 3 members of the US Postal Services team are here, and the other big names are getting themselves up here all the time. The Accept car have got 2 riders here. In the top riders, Jakob Piel, and also in here is Martin Sonner. The Slovenians have put 1 rider who's been in all of the moves every day, every time, and that's Frost Merden from the KRKA Telecom team. And the top boy too from MAPE is in here. That's David Bramati. 155 has done well to get in here. Just check who that is, because Anton Villatoro from the Composite A team. This is now beginning to look a very good breakaway.
And it's funny, it's exactly what the team director of the MAPE team said would happen. About a 15-man breakaway, and it would go to the finish with Fred Rodriguez in it.
Yes, Fred's there too, that's quite right.
That's a very clever team director with a lot of experience. Mark Sargent.
And now when they ring that bell, they mean it. This is the one that truly is the Bell Lap.
They'll have one more lap of the big loop, one more time through Manayunk, one more time up the Manayunk Wall. They'll make it back here to the Benjamin Franklin Parkway for the final 3 laps of Lemon Hill before we finish this 15th anniversary of the First Union United States Professional Championship.
So that little field there, the Accept car boys are doing the driving, and most of the driving is being done by Sonner, because Peel is the one they will try to rest. As Seiko have only in fact got 1 rider up here now, and that's not quite the way it should have worked out for them. Salvatore Commesso.
Back here are the chasers, looking a little bedraggled. They do not look to have the decisive attitude among them to be able to catch this group in front, and part of that attitude is being determined by the rider in 2nd position, Frankie Andreu. looking around, slowing down that chase group.
Correct.
Because his boys, 3 of them, including his big favorite, Hincapie, are in front. Plan has gone to perfection for this man, the most experienced American racer on the international scene today.
Yeah, that's absolutely true now. They're trying to back off anybody reaching these 17 leaders. As far as they are concerned, the US Postal, they've got their man in there with George Hincapie. Now it's up to him.
9 laps in the books. 1 lap to go, 1 big lap to go. We'll be back with more USPro Cycling Championships right after this. Live at 2:15 in the afternoon. This is the final lap, lap number 10. And the other big number, of course, USPro Cycling Championships is 17. 17 part, making up the lead group. The leaders lead by 1 minute and 2. Previous, the lead was 44 seconds. The big 17 are out there right now, Phil Leggett.
They are. When you say final lap, Gary, remember we've still got 3 smaller circuits to go.
Remember last year?
Yes, indeed. That's when it can happen. But at the moment, we've got these 17 leaders, and I'll just quickly run through the names for you. George Hincapie, Marty Jemison, and Benoit Joachim, all of the same US Postal team. From the Slovenian team, we've got Bros Mern. From Saturn, we've got Brian Walton and Leipheimer. Harm Janssen of the Netherlands still here. David Klinger is here. Mike Sayers, one of the original escapers, he's here. Then Matt Kashara, David Bramati, the Mappe rider. Anton Villatoro, who's an American, is up here. The big sprinter who could take on George for the American crown, Fred Rodriguez. You've got the little chubby sprinter from Italy, Salvatore Camesso. And you've got Jakob Peel and Sonne from Denmark. And another man who can punch when it comes to a sprint, David McKenzie from Melbourne in Australia. A very fast finisher indeed.
It's a good collection of sprinters. You've got fast guys in the front here, and a lot of the decision of how this race is going to be played out is going to be made by team structure, team force, and the Postal Service has done very well to have 3 riders in the front group, and the Saturns have 2. So team numbers are going to be a big factor in the end of this race as the tactics unfold.
Well, the weather stayed with us all the way today. It's been a beautiful day, one of the nicest days we've had for some years. We've never seen rain in this race since it began in its 15-year history. There is Freddy Rodriguez, a stage winner this year in the Tour of Langkawi. That is an island off the Malaysian coast, but the race itself races all over Malaysia. They just use the name Langkawi for the publicity. Anyway, the race there is a good race for Fred to get his earn his teeth in, because he is a new pro on Mappe, and now showing he's coming through nicely.
Earlier this race, we talked to Mark Gorski, the director of U.S. Postal Service, and Mark is back on the line again. Thank you, Mark, for taking the time, because I imagine you're a little bit busy right now, but you got 3 of your riders among the big 17. How is your positioning going right now? Are you very happy? You weren't happy before.
I'm happy now. I'm a happier camper. We got 3 riders in this lead group of 17. The race really kind of exploded up the wall the last time, and obviously we're happy with George Hincapie up in the group, and Benoit Joachim is the young rider from Luxembourg, and of course the veteran Marty Jemison. And I think it's going to be a really interesting last 20 miles or so here.
What are the tactics for the team? You've got George Hincapie in front driving the group. What do you plan to do with him?
Well, George is strong enough to still push the pace here. I think really the big threat, if it comes down to a field sprint, is his good friend Fred Rodriguez from the Mapai team. And but I'll tell you what, Salvatore Camesso is not going to wait around for the field sprint. I think he and Jakob Thiel of Acceptcard are going to provide real formidable challenge in the last 2 or 3 times up Lemon Hill.
So you've got this fill here, Mark. You've got just this one climb of the Manayunk wall. Do you think that Salvatore might try again to rip them apart?
Well, I told the guys at the meeting this morning that I think the key guy to watch in this race, and particularly those last 3 small laps, is Salvatore Camesso. He's a very strong rider. He's very aggressive, and there's no question he's going to be attacking. It's just a question of when. And we've got to, Marty and Benoit have really got to cover those breaks with Salvatore.
If it comes down to a sprint between George and Fred, how much do you like your guy?
Well, I feel good about George winning it after 155 miles of racing. You know, Fred is very, very fast, but hopefully he's going to be worn down after 155 miles of racing. So I think that George probably has the advantage. But you know what? Anything could happen. There could be some 1 or 2 rider get away
prior to the field sprint. So it's still anybody's game at this point.
Anything can happen. Thank you very much, Mark Gorski, Director, U.S. Postal Service, taking some time. He's got so much on his mind. He's coordinating this, coordinating that, but he takes a few moments to talk about team strategy, and it could come down to George versus Fred, but he's trying to beat up Fred a little bit right now.
Well, you can't blame him, because I don't think he'd like to sign Fred for the team, but Fred's got his place on the Italian squad. It is the #1 team in the world, and I spoke to him over the weekend, you know, and he's really enjoying his life with the Mape boys. But he's on American ground here, and he would have the right to wear the American jersey if he got that chance for a whole year, and that under anybody's regime is fantastic. So he'll try to win, and I think, you know, he will push George all the way.
You getting all set for that sprint? You got to get your voice all set to go.
John got the other one wrong. I'm going to get this one right.
All right, let's go to Cecily Tynan. She's live right now in the pit area.